The Last of Us is just an amazing game. It told an amazing story, it provided us with awesome gameplay, and some of the most memorable moments in everyone's gaming history. Right after the game came out, people were already expecting a sequel, and we actually really haven't got much information about it up until the last few years. And we are now well aware that a sequel is on the way, we have seen gameplay, and everyone's very excited for it. But there's one major question that's on everyone's mind, and that is if The Last of Us Part 2 can even be better than The Last of Us Part 1. What's going on, guys? It is JSnake here, and today I'm bringing you guys another video. In this video, we are going to be talking about The Last of Us series, and we are going to actually be talking about if Part 2 can even be better than Part 1. Now, before we actually get into this video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with post notifications turned on so you will be notified every single time I do upload a new video. But with that being said, guys, let's get into this video. So a little bit of background information about The Last of Us. Back when the game was actually first announced for the PlayStation 3, people were pretty excited for it. I mean, it was coming from the developers of the Uncharted series. It was going to definitely be a big game, but no one really expected it to be one of the greatest games of all time, if not the greatest game of all time. Now, obviously, other people have different opinions on what their favorite video game or what they think the greatest video game of all time is, and that's fine, but just from the sheer amount of awards, the actual story, and everything that goes into The Last of Us, it definitely puts it up there. Whether you like the game or not, you'll have to admit that. There was definitely hype for the game, but no one could predict what this game would actually be, what it would entail, and what it would accomplish. It received so many awards, and I've talked about this in a previous The Last of Us video I made, which I hope you guys have seen that. If not, make sure you do check that out. But the game, just by all its accolades and all its achievements and awards and everything, it really looks like the best game of all time. And it is, in my opinion. I think it definitely lives up to that name. It has the greatest story by far out of any video game I've ever played, and I've played quite a few video games, but out of every single one, and I always play single player, but out of every single one, The Last of Us definitely takes the crown, and it's not even by a little bit. I mean, this game really kills the competition in terms of single player story. The game obviously has fun gameplay mechanics, and I think the gameplay mechanics in the first one were fine. But, you know, it's just, obviously, it wasn't known for its gameplay mechanics. It's known for its incredible story, and I cannot emphasize this enough. With that being said, though, if you have not played the game yet and you are watching this video, I highly suggest you go and play the game. You are missing out, trust me. If you do go and play it, it will be something you'll never forget. And also, this video might not make sense to you if you don't even know what The Last of Us is or you've never played it. But regardless of the first game and what it accomplished, a lot of people, like I said, are very concerned for the second game. Now, when The Last of Us actually did come out, Neil Druckmann, who's the creative director over at Naughty Dog for The Last of Us, he said himself that there will not be a sequel unless the story is worth telling. And we all do know that the team that did create The Last of Us are fans of the game. They're not like some of these other AAA developers who don't care, they're just in it for the money. They actually legitimately care about the game. They actually want to make it the best they can. They care about the characters. It's like a piece of them, and they want to make it the best they can. They're not just trying to create some quick cash grab like these other AAA games, such as, you know, Star Wars Battlefront 2, stuff like that. They're not just trying to create some quick cash grab. They legitimately care about the game. They care about the story. They care about the character development. They care about the gameplay, everything. So let's say you took some developers. They don't have the same mindset as the team that worked on The Last of Us. They're, you know, just a typical developer. And let's say they made a game half as successful as The Last of Us, and even a good one too. Let's say it has a great story, great gameplay, everything. When they see how successful the game does, and believe me, trust me on this, you can see this with tons of games. When they see how successful the game does, they will instantly start making a sequel, and I mean literally probably start planning the game a month after the first one releases. That's how cash hungry and money grabbing they want to be. They will jump on the opportunity so fast because it can make them a lot of money. I mean, think about it. We got a second Star Wars Battlefront from EA, even though the first one didn't do too good, but it did make them some money. So can you imagine if EA EA Star Wars Battlefront was semi-successful and it was almost as successful as The Last of Us, could you imagine how fast they'd start the second one? Considering the fact that the first game wasn't successful at all and they already made a second one regardless? It's pretty obvious that they have an opportunity to make a ton of money here. But at least from the history and what we've seen from them, that is not their intention at all. The biggest thing that points towards this as well is The Last of Us came out in 2013 and is now 2018, and Last of Us Part 2 is rumored to come out in 2019. Now that's basically showing how long the game's actually been in development. Now you can obviously say that, oh, maybe they took a couple of year break or something, did something else, yada yada yada, but the game's been in development for quite a while now, and if this was some other company like EA or Activision, then the game would have been out and we would have actually had The Last of Us, we would have had it years ago. We would have probably had The Last of Us in 2015 or even 2016. But the fact that this game is pretty much set to come out in 2019, and actually we don't even have a release date because Naughty Dog said that they are not going to have a set release date because they don't want to feel rushed to work on the game, which is just further proof that they're trying to make it as best as they can. But it's just the game's been in development for so long now, so they're clearly taking their time with it and they're clearly trying to perfect everything. But a lot of people have the question, can you really top perfection? I mean, The Last of Us is a masterpiece at the very least. Could you really top that even if you put a ton of effort into it? Like, how much better can you get? Like, I really don't see any flaws in The Last of Us. There is nothing I'd want to change about the game. Nothing at all. I think the game is perfect. I don't think anything should be changed. I literally can't find one thing wrong with the game. Now, whether my opinion is biased or not, take that as it is. I am sure we can all agree that The Last of Us Part 2 has a very, very high bar to top. And I'm going to be straight up honest with you guys. I don't know if it can top it. I have my doubts, and so do a lot of other people. I mean, quite frankly, I would be happy if there was no sequel. I'd be perfectly fine. I think they ended the story perfectly. I don't think they needed a sequel. But you know what? I trust in Naughty Dog and I trust in Neil Druckmann. He himself said they will not make a sequel to The Last of Us unless there's a story worth telling. So clearly there is something driving them to make this second game. Something that they think they can present to us that will create a very, very memorable experience. Hopefully to them, they think it can create a more memorable experience than the first game. Now, here's the thing though. I'm not saying that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be inferior to The Last of Us Part 1. I mean, in terms of gameplay and graphics, there are already huge improvements that we've seen. Gameplay and graphics, I already can assure you 100,000% they will be much better. We're talking about a game that's developed fully on next-gen consoles. We are talking about a game that obviously has had a foundation set for it from the first game. It's not destined to fail there. I can assure you, like I said, it will do much better in terms of gameplay, graphics, performance, all the technical sort of things. Really, the only thing that this game could actually be worse at than the first game is the story, and of course, the story is the most important part. You give me a game with the best graphics ever seen and some cool little gameplay mechanics, but if there's no reason to play, if there's no story, no strong story, crappy character, stuff like that, I'm not going to play it. I prefer to play a game with very inferior graphics actually, as long as it has a good story. So yes, those things are going to be nice to have and they're going to be awesome to play around with, but story really takes the crown and the most important aspect of the game. Now, Naughty Dog themselves have said that the second game is focused around hate and revenge, whereas the first game was focused around love. Now, this is a red flag to a lot of people, and it was for me as well, because hate and revenge is literally the complete opposite from love and affection. Why would they be going so far away from what they built in the first game and trying to create something completely different in the second? And yes, that makes a ton of sense. But there is some good actually to them going completely opposite of what they made in the first game. Now yes, like everyone else, I'm going to miss the awesome relationship, the loving relationship, just everything we had in The Last of Us built between Joel and Ellie, but I'm really hoping that's for the better. And I say this because if they tried to replicate exactly what they did in the first game, then the game is pretty much destined to fail, or at least be inferior and not as good as the first one. Take this example, draw a circle on a piece of paper. Try to copy that exact circle again. Now, hopefully if you're not a crappy artist like me, you can get pretty close to it, but it's just not going to be the same. And quite frankly, that first circle is the best one. Like, you want to replicate that first circle, that's your goal, but you're falling short of that. You'll always look back at it and you'll say, damn it, I really wish I was able to draw the circle better. The first one just looks so much better. Even though you drew the first one, it's still very hard to replicate the first one in another circle. Now this is the same concept, but obviously on a much greater scale, but really it's all the same thing. Even though they made The Last of Us, they're the creators, they know everything about it, it still is almost nearly impossible to replicate it. And let's say they did replicate it, then we'd just be getting the same experience. Yes, it'd be pretty nostalgic, but then it would just really feel like a reskinned The Last of Us Part 1 in next-gen consoles again, which we've already had The Last of Us remastered for next-gen consoles, but it really just feel like a reskin and feel like we're experiencing everything we already did, nothing new. And guys, not knowing what to expect is a good thing. When we first played The Last of Us, the first few times playing through it, we didn't really know what to expect. There was so much we wanted to discover, so much to find out, and just the actual exploring and discovering it and actually seeing it for the first few times is really what created some of those memorable experiences. And since we really don't know what to expect from The Last of Us Part 2, I mean, we don't even know what the story is really about, we are really going to be experiencing something new, something that we never saw before. So it may not feel the same as the first game, but it will definitely feel very cool, just kind of being able to uncover more stuff. And obviously, guys, more resources have been put into this, more members of the staff team, and obviously they have better technology. So it's obviously going to be a much better game. There's going to be much more to explore. And The Last of Us Part 1 had a lot of hidden things, a lot of little cool secret dialogue, just a bunch of little features that really made the game great. Can you imagine how many are actually going to be in the second one? Oh, there's going to be tons, trust me. So actually them going a different route is not necessarily a bad thing, but it could be. If it strays too far away from the original and it's not anything like it at all, then what's the point of it being even called The Last of Us? I mean, we're trying to continue the journey between Joel and Ellie, or at least Ellie, or at least Joel. We don't want something completely new, or we don't want something completely different. It still has to have some characteristics from the first game. That's the whole point of a sequel with anything. A sequel movie, a sequel game, a sequel book. You're supposed to be able to kind of continue the experience that you got in the first one. So the key really is moderation, and I have confidence in Naughty Dog that they're going to be able to effectively do this. They don't want to stray too far away from the original game, but they also don't want to make it too much like the original game. They have to find sort of that middle point. The game's new, but it also isn't too new, if you guys understand what I'm saying. If they're able to do that, then I'm sure The Last of Us Part 2 will definitely be a success. Maybe it's not as the first game, because trust me, that's a very high bar to reach, and if they can even reach it, then that's a huge success on its own. But it will definitely be a fun game to play if they are able to find this middle ground. And I have all the confidence in Naughty Dog that they will be able to do this. Regardless of all this, I'm sure the reason you guys clicked on this video is because you have your own concerns for the game, and that's fine. Everybody has concerns for the game. Every single person who plans on picking up the second game, or at least getting involved with it in some sort of way, has concerns. I can assure you that. And this is just more than The Last of Us. Any sequel or any continuation of a series, the people who plan on buying it or getting involved with it have their concerns for it. That's just how it is. No matter how good The Last of Us Part 2 does, we still have The Last of Us, the original, the revolutionary game that is one of the greatest games of all time, and that will never change no matter what a sequel does or doesn't do. But anyways guys, that's really about it for this video. I really hope I kind of ease some of your stress that you may have with this game. Trust me, it's fine to have, everybody has it, but hopefully some of these things I told you can sort of relax you, because they definitely relaxed me when I started to piece them together. Anyways guys, with that being said, peace.